Hello everyone! In this lab, we will build a simple Cisco wireless LAN setup. We will use Cisco WLC 2504 as a controller, and we will have one lightweight access point. We will have one PC for management and to configure the controller, and we will have one DHCP server. We will add also one radius server for authentication, and we will have one multi-layer switch for connecting these devices and to be the gateway for this setup. All ports will be in VLAN 1 to make it simple. Typically, we will have the management and user VLANs in different interfaces in the controller, but for me, I want to focus on configuring SSIDs, and I wanted to make it flat, one VLAN, which is not typical in actual deployments. We will connect two devices to wireless LAN. One of them will connect to WPA2 pre-shared key SSID, and the SSID name is PSK. The other SSID is WPA2 Enterprise, which means 802.1x, and the SSID name is Enterprise. We will connect two devices to these SSIDs. For IP addresses and VLANs, we will follow this setup. The gateway, which is the multi-layer switch, will be in VLAN 1. All interfaces will be in VLAN 1, and the gateway will be the layer 3 SVI, which will be 10.0.0.1. Subnet mask is /24. The controller will have static IP address in management VLAN. There will be one interface only, or one VLAN, and that interface is 10.0.0.6. Now, it is common to have the users in different VLAN or different interface than management, but for me, I will have them all in the same VLAN to make it simple and to focus on configuring SSID, not on tagging and routing. The DHCP server will have static IP address for sure, and it is 10.0.0.7. The radius server will have also static IP address 10.0.0.8. The AP and the management PC and the phones will be all DHCP from the same subnet and will get IP addresses from this DHCP server. With all this information, we are ready to start our packet tracer and building this lab. This is my packet tracer. I will start first by adding the switch. I will choose 3650, which provides PoE for the access point. I will power it up with redundant power supplies, and also I will configure it immediately. It will take some time to power up. The configuration is simple on this switch. All what I need to do is conft, then interface VLAN 1, and I will configure the IP address to be 10.0.0.1.255.255.255.0. I will enable routing also. Now let me make sure they are up, and I need to no shut interface VLAN 1. It is shut down now. Now in actual deployment, in real life deployment, I should add security, username, password, or maybe AAA, and I typically add enable password and some hardening, but this is just a lab and my focus is only on wireless. I'll save the configuration and start adding the devices one by one. So I will start by adding the PC, which is the management PC. I will add also the controller, which is 2504. I will add two servers, one for DHCP and one for radius. I will also add the thin access point or lightweight access point, and I will have the two smartphones ready for testing later. Now I will connect the cables. I will add some names to these devices so I know their IP addresses, which makes it easier for me to know the address just by looking at the device. And I'll configure the IP address also. So this is the port which is connected to the switch, and for management I'll configure the IP address as 10.0.0.6. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. The gateway is the multi-layer switch, and it is also the DNS server. Now this is DHCP server. I'll call it DHCP and the address 10.0.0.7. The gateway is 10.0.0.1 and it is also the DNS server. I will not configure IPv6. I'll configure the interface IP address to be 10.0.0.7 and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Now I need to configure the DHCP service also, so I need to enable it first of all. Then I configure the default gateway, which is also the same as the DNS server. The start IP address will be 11 because the first 10 addresses are reserved for static addresses, and it is enough for me to have 100 addresses. I'll configure the WLC IP address and I'll save. Make sure the settings are reflected here and they are all correct. Now my DHCP server is ready. It is time to configure my radius server. So the same, I'll call it radius, and I will type the IP address, which is 10.0.0.0.8. The default gateway is 1 and it is also the DNS server. The interface is a static IP address and it is 10.0.0.8 and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Now with this configured, I'm ready to enable the service. The service is a AAA, it is on, the port is 1812, which is the typical port for radius. I will add one client, which is the controller. The client is the device that sends radius requests to this radius server. I'll give it a name, WLC, the IP address 10.0.0.6, and the secret is Cisco 123456. The secret is like a password between the radius client and radius server. It can be anything within certain settings, but the most important thing is to be the same in the radius server and radius client. I'll add this one, and then I'll configure one user. I'll call it employee, and the password is employee123. Add. So this way my radius server is ready, and it is time to start my testing or configuration for the controller. Now I need to make sure this device got an IP address by DHCP. So I need to make sure it is DHCP first of all. It got the gateway, which means it seems to be working fine, and it got the IP address at 12 because the first 10 addresses are reserved for static addresses. Now I go to command prompt and I make sure I can ping the controller 10.0.0.0.6. So now I'm sure it is reachable. I can work on the web interface. It takes some time to open the web browser. Now it is good to wait for some time to make sure that the controller is up and running. Then try to type the IP address here. It takes time. And you can see the traffic is going back and forth between the PC and the controller. And now it opens. Now for the admin username password, I'll call it admin. And I will set the password. And start. Now the system name, I'll just call it WLC 1. The country, I'll leave it United States for now. The time, I'll leave it as it is. Now for management IP address, it is 10.0.0.6. The subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, and the default gateway is 10.0.0.1. Now management VLAN ID, I will leave it 0, which means untagged. All my ports are in VLAN 1 in the switch, so untagged traffic will be in VLAN 1. Now typically you will have management VLAN tagged and you will have user traffic tagged in different VLAN, but for me I want to focus on configuring the SSIDs. I will leave everything in VLAN 1, which is not typical and not recommended in real life scenarios. Now next, I'll configure the pre-shared key SSID. So it is PSK, which is the SSID name, personal. The passphrase, I'll make it PSK 123456, and the same here, PSK 123456. I have only one VLAN, management VLAN, so it is the interface, and I will not configure the DHCP server. The DHCP is in the same VLAN as the users. Next. Now I will leave virtual IP address. It is another subject that we will not discuss here. So all good, apply. And system will reboot. We will wait for the system to reboot, which may take few minutes. Now let me verify if I can ping the controller. Not yet. Okay, it's pinging now. So back to the GUI. And the IP address again. 10.0.0.6. Now it's working. The username and password are the ones I configured. Let's expand this window a little bit. As you can see here, I can see one access point already broadcasting, which means the access point was able to discover the controller which is in the same VLAN. So I have one SSID already broadcasting, it is enabled, and it is WPA2 pre-shared key. If we click on this SSID to see the details, this is the name of the SSID. This is the security, WPA2. It is WPA2 AES. Now, in real life, it is better to go for WPA3. WPA2 is not secure enough these days, mainly pre-shared key, and with the available tools and processors, it is possible to crack the password with reasonable time. So it is better in real life to go for WPA3 and maybe WPA3 Enterprise, but it is just a lab, and we are testing WPA2 because this is the mode available in Packet Tracer. Now, in real life, the configuration of WPA3 is similar, so I will do WPA2 for this lab. Make sure BSK is enabled, and this is the key. That's all for pre-shared key. Let's verify the device. So I will connect this device to pre-shared key SSID. I'll go to wireless, then WPA2 pre-shared key, and the key is PSK 123456. Now this one is configured. I need to configure the SSID also, and then I need to wait to see if it can connect and get an IP address. And as you can see, the device got an IP address. This IP address is 14, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, which means this IP address is from the DHCP server in my setup. Now in Packet Tracer, you will see that the device connects by a line. You will see this line or this continuous line, which means the device is connected now to pre-shared key SSID. Now let's configure the other SSID, which is WPA2 Enterprise. To the PC again, and again to wireless LANs. Expand it a bit, create a new, go. The SSID name will be Enterprise, because this one is WPA2 Enterprise. And the profile and SSID name are exactly the same. Apply to create that SSID. Now before I proceed, I need to configure the AAA. So before I enable it, I need to go to security, and from there I need to create a new AAA server. So it is an authentication server, and new. The IP address is 10.0.0.8, which is the IP address of the Radius server in my setup. The shared secret is the same one I configured in the server, which is Cisco 123456, and I need to type it again. I will leave everything on the default. 1812 is the port I configured in Radius server. It is enabled, and the other settings leave them on default for this lab setup. Apply. Now back to my wireless LAN. This is the SSID, still disabled. I'll enable it. The interface or the VLAN is management. It is the only VLAN I have. For security, it will be WPA2. I will enable WPA2 for sure, because it is more secure than WPA. And I will enable 802.1x. Now, one more thing I need to configure, which is a AAA server. So AAA server will be 10.0.0.8. Now the SSID is configured, and I can start testing from the other device. And we configure wireless LAN settings. So wireless, we configure the SSID Enterprise. We configure the security, which is WPA2, username employee, and password is employee123, which are the username password I configured in Radius server. Now I wait for the device to connect. And as you can see, the device is connected now, and it got an IP address, which means it is connected to my DHCP server using this SSID and this username password. Now you should see the line that comes from this device to the access point, and this means both devices are connected and they got IP address from the DHCP server, and everything is working the way it should be. Now let's verify the IP addresses. They are 10.00.13 and 10.00.14. If you go to this PC, to CMD, and try to ping these two addresses. So the first address is 13, it is pinging, and the IP address for the other smartphone is 14, and it is also pinging. So our lab is working fine now. The controller is broadcasting, or is sending the configuration to the AP to broadcast two SSIDs. One of them is pre-shared key PSK, and the other one is 802.1x or enterprise, and these two devices are connected to these SSIDs. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it is informative to you. Thank you for watching, and see you in next video. Goodbye.